Breath is the first thing we are given when we arrive in this world, and it is the last thing we release when we leave. In between, our entire existence is carried by the rhythm of inhalation and exhalation. Yet, for most, this sacred rhythm goes unnoticed. Breathing becomes mechanical, shallow, a background process. We live as though breath is ordinary, when in truth it is extraordinary. To master the breath is to master the mind, and to master stillness is to master the self. Together, they form the foundation of inner strength, clarity, and unshakable presence. When one begins to pay attention to breath, a doorway opens. Each inhalation is an invitation to take in life, and each exhalation is an act of surrender. Breathing deeply, slowly, with awareness changes the state of the body. The heart slows down, the nervous system finds calm, and the scattered noise of thoughts begins to soften. Breath is a teacher, one that asks for no words but shows its lessons through experience. When controlled, it becomes an anchor in moments of chaos. When observed, it becomes a mirror showing the inner condition of the mind and emotions. If the breath is restless, the mind is restless. If the breath is deep and calm, the mind follows. Stillness, like breath, is often misunderstood. Many equate stillness with inactivity or emptiness, but true stillness is not about the absence of motion. It is about the quality of presence. One may sit in silence, and yet the mind is running, restless, jumping from memory to expectation. This is not stillness. Stillness is when the body is steady, the breath flows naturally, and the mind begins to release its compulsive grasp on thought. It is a state of inner balance where one can remain unshaken despite the noise of the world. To reach such a state requires discipline, patience, and repetition, but it is not beyond anyone's reach. Breath and stillness are not separate, they are intertwined. By mastering the breath, one prepares the ground for stillness. Controlled breathing slows down the fluctuations of the body and gives the mind an anchor to settle upon. As the rhythm of breathing becomes steady, the restlessness of thought begins to dissolve. In stillness, one discovers that the mind does not need to constantly chase, grasp, or resist. Instead, it can simply be. And within that being lies great power, for a still mind is a sharp mind, capable of seeing with clarity and acting with precision. The mastery of breath is also mastery over one's energy. Every inhalation draws in life force, every exhalation releases tension, waste, and stagnant energy. To breathe consciously is to circulate this life force, to nourish the body and sharpen awareness. Those who breathe shallowly live shallowly, often reacting to life rather than responding with clarity. Those who deepen their breath begin to experience greater vitality, focus, and emotional stability. They discover that control over the breath is control over the nervous system, and control over the nervous system is control over how one shows up in every moment. Stillness, too, has a transformative effect on energy. In movement, energy is spent, but in stillness, energy is conserved and refined. Just as a lake reflects the sky only when its surface is calm, the mind reflects truth only when it rests in stillness. The world teaches constant motion, always doing, achieving, producing, but wisdom teaches balance. To pause, to be still, is not to waste time but to reclaim power. It is in stillness that one connects with the deeper currents of existence, currents that are drowned out by noise and haste. To master breath and stillness is to understand timing. Breath teaches rhythm, the rhythm of taking in and letting go of effort and rest. Stillness teaches patience, the ability to wait without agitation, to observe without needing immediate results. When rhythm and patience come together, life no longer feels like a race but like a dance. In this dance, one does not struggle against time but moves in harmony with it. Breath also reveals the truth about control. One cannot stop breathing and expect to live. Yet within this necessity, one has a choice to breathe unconsciously or consciously. Similarly, one cannot escape the movement of thoughts, but one can choose how to relate to them. Mastery does not mean stopping thought or halting breath, but rather guiding them with awareness. The same applies to stillness. To sit in stillness is not to force silence, but to allow the natural quiet to emerge when one stops feeding distraction. When both breath and stillness are mastered, one gains access to an inner reservoir of strength. The storms of life may come, but they cannot shake the one who breathes deeply and rests in stillness. Conflict may arise, but it cannot control the one who knows how to pause, breathe, and respond rather than react. Opportunities may appear, and clarity will guide the one who has cultivated the sharpness of a still mind. The mastery of breath and stillness is therefore not merely a practice of meditation or relaxation. It is a way of living. It touches every aspect of existence, from how one handles stress to how one experiences joy. Mastery is not gained overnight. It is cultivated daily, in small moments, in conscious choices. To stop for a moment and take a deep breath before speaking. To close the eyes and sit in silence for a few minutes each day. To notice when the breath is shallow and gently guide it deeper. To catch oneself in the rush of thought and return to stillness. These are small acts, but they accumulate, and over time they reshape the entire character of one's being. Breath and stillness are not luxuries, they are necessities. They are not practices reserved for monks or sages, but tools for anyone willing to reclaim control over their inner world. In the mastery of breath lies resilience, and in the mastery of stillness lies freedom. Together, they form the unshakable foundation upon which the journey of self-mastery unfolds. Discipline is often mistaken as a restriction, a limitation, or even a punishment. Yet, when observed deeply, discipline in daily actions is nothing more than a commitment to oneself. It is the bridge between the person you are and the person you are capable of becoming. Without discipline, desire remains only a thought, a dream that never manifests. With discipline, even the smallest action, repeated consistently, has the power to shape a completely different life. To understand discipline, one must move away from the idea of sudden bursts of effort. True discipline does not live in extraordinary moments. It resides in the ordinary, in the unnoticed choices you make each day. Waking up when you said you would, keeping the promises you made to yourself, repeating small practices even when no one is watching. This is where discipline takes root. It is not about perfection, but about steadiness, about showing up again and again regardless of mood or circumstance. When we study the path of self-mastery, we realize that greatness does not come from a single act of willpower. It is born from the repeated cultivation of small rituals. Just as water shapes stone not by force, but through steady flow, discipline in daily actions carves character. Each repeated action imprints itself upon the mind and body, transforming what was once difficult into something natural. The first time you rise before the sun, it feels heavy. The 10th time, it feels lighter. The 100th time, it becomes who you are. Discipline is also a form of freedom. At first glance, it may appear that discipline limits you, but in truth, it liberates you. When you discipline the body and mind, you are no longer enslaved by impulses, distractions, or fleeting emotions. The one who is disciplined is not easily swayed by temptation because they have trained their attention. The one who is disciplined does not waste energy debating with themselves each day because the decision has already been made in advance. Discipline removes chaos and brings clarity, creating space for growth. In daily actions, discipline means paying attention not only to the grand gestures but also to the subtle ones. The way you breathe, the way you walk, the way you speak, the way you eat. Each action can be guided with awareness. To eat mindlessly is one way, to eat with discipline is another. To let words spill without thought is one way, to speak with discipline is another. Discipline is not only about external habits, it is also about the discipline of thought, the discipline of emotion, the discipline of attention. There is an ancient wisdom that says, how you do anything is how you do everything. If this is true, then every small act of discipline in daily life strengthens the whole. The disciplined person does not wait for the perfect conditions to begin. They act within the conditions they have. They do not postpone action for tomorrow, they do it today. They do not expect motivation to appear first, they move, and motivation follows their movement. In this way, discipline becomes a companion that supports progress even in times of difficulty. It is also important to see that discipline is not born from harshness. True discipline is not about punishing oneself but about caring for oneself. It is an act of respect for your own potential. If you respect your body, you discipline it with movement and nourishment. If you respect your mind, you discipline it with learning and silence. If you respect your time, you discipline it with focus and purpose. In this way, discipline is not a cage but a pathway, a structure that allows growth to flourish. In the Shaolin tradition, discipline is the essence of training, the repetition of forms, the endless practice of techniques, the refinement of movement. All of it is not for the sake of perfection alone, but for shaping the character of the one who trains. The body becomes stronger, but more importantly, the mind becomes steady. Through daily actions, disciplines into a natural state of being where effort is no longer forced but flows like breath. Discipline in daily actions is also the training ground for resilience. When life places obstacles in front of you, it is the disciplined mind that does not crumble. Because discipline has already taught you patience, consistency, and persistence, challenges become opportunities rather than barriers. Each disciplined action strengthens the will, and each act of will becomes part of the foundation upon which transformation is built. To cultivate discipline is to cultivate energy. Every time you act with discipline, you conserve energy that would otherwise be wasted on hesitation, distraction, or regret. Instead of scattering your power, you channel it. Over time, this collected energy becomes a force that can move you beyond limitations. Daily discipline is like planting seeds. Each small action may seem insignificant in the moment, but in time, the harvest reveals itself. Discipline also teaches balance. Too much force creates resistance. Too little effort creates stagnation. True discipline is steady and sustainable. It respects rest as much as it respects work. It honors consistency over intensity. It understands that the journey is not about burning out quickly, but about moving with patience, allowing each action to accumulate over time. In the end, discipline in daily actions is not about controlling life, but about aligning with it. It is about taking responsibility for what is within your power and letting go of what is not. Through discipline, you learn to guide yourself with intention rather than being pulled by impulse. Each disciplined action becomes a step, and each step, no matter how small, brings you closer to the life you envision. In the unfolding journey of human experience, one of the most underestimated forces is the clarity of intention. Intention is not simply a thought, nor is it just a fleeting desire. It is the concentrated energy that shapes direction, influences choices, and aligns the unseen currents of life. When intentions are vague, scattered, or divided, the path that follows is one of confusion. But when intention is sharpened, when it is purified and free from unnecessary noise, it becomes like the point of an arrow, capable of cutting through resistance and guiding the archer's hand toward the target with precision. Clarity of intention is not achieved through wishful thinking alone. It requires an intimate dialogue with oneself, a stripping away of pretenses, and the courage to stand face to face with what truly matters. Many people think they know what they want, yet if asked to articulate their intention, they stumble, hesitate, or present answers clouded by what others expect of them. This lack of clarity is not harmless. It drains energy, dissipates focus, and creates a state of inner contradiction where the heart leans in one direction while the mind drifts toward another. To cultivate clarity of intention, one must first silence the inner turbulence. Imagine water that has been stirred and muddied. In such a state, you cannot see your reflection clearly. But once the water is still, once the ripples dissolve, the image appears with sharpness. The same principle applies within. Until the mind grows calm, until distractions are observed and not obeyed, intention cannot emerge with purity. Therefore, meditation, reflection, and conscious observation are not luxuries. They are essential practices for clearing the space where intention takes root. Another aspect to consider is the alignment of intention with values. If an intention arises solely from ego, fear, or comparison, it lacks endurance. It is like a candle burning in the wind, easily extinguished at the first obstacle. But when intention is connected to values, when it resonates with the deeper rhythm of one's existence, it gains resilience. Such an intention is like a flame protected within a lantern, capable of guiding the traveler through long nights without faltering. Values act as the compass, ensuring that intention does not deviate even when temptations and distractions attempt to pull it away. Clarity also demands simplicity. The modern mind is overloaded with endless desires, goals, and competing pursuits. One moment it wishes for comfort, the next for recognition, then for freedom, and then again for control. In this constant shifting, energy is scattered. A single drop of water falling repeatedly on the same spot can carve stone, but 1,000 drops falling in different places leave no mark. When intention is scattered, nothing substantial is achieved. But when intention is simple, direct, and unwavering, transformation follows naturally. The discipline of clarity does not end with defining the intention. It must be held, nurtured, and embodied. Every action, no matter how small, is either in service of intention or in contradiction to it. To say one intends to cultivate peace, yet live in constant agitation, is to dilute the power of intention. To say one intends to build strength yet choose idleness each day is to weaken the bond between words and reality. The true clarity of intention shines not in the articulation of it, but in the alignment of daily actions with it. The mind often resists this discipline, for it is easier to drift than to direct, easier to wish than to commit. But clarity transforms resistance into flow. When intention is clear, decisions are no longer burdensome. Choices that once felt heavy become light, because the direction has already been chosen. This is the subtle power of clarity. It dissolves hesitation. It makes the path walkable not because obstacles disappear, but because the traveler now knows which way to move, step after step. There is also an invisible dimension to clarity of intention. Just as a seed knows how to grow into a tree when placed in fertile soil, intention carries within it a natural unfolding. When clarity is present, the forces of life seem to rearrange themselves in support. Opportunities emerge, connections are made, synchronicities appear. This is not magic, nor is it coincidence. It is the result of aligning one's inner frequency with a direction so precise that the external world cannot help but reflect it. The universe, in its vastness, responds to signals of certainty. Clarity sends that signal without distortion. Yet, one must be cautious of mistaking stubbornness for clarity. Clarity is firm but flexible. It is grounded in truth but open to growth. Stubbornness clings to an intention even when it no longer serves the deeper self. Clarity, on the other hand, adjusts when new insight arises. It is like the archer adjusting the angle of the bow depending on the wind, while still keeping the target in sight. This adaptability ensures that intention remains alive rather than rigid, responsive rather than blind. The practice of clarity is ongoing. It is not a one-time declaration, but a continual refinement. Each day presents distractions, external voices, and inner doubts that attempt to blur intention. Each day requires a return, a realignment, a sharpening of focus. Just as a sword must be sharpened to remain effective, so too must intention be clarified again and again. Without this renewal, even the most powerful intention fades into the background noise of life. In the end, clarity of intention is not about control, but about direction. It is not about forcing outcomes, but about aligning with purpose. It is the difference between wandering aimlessly and walking with presence. When intention is clear, every step carries meaning, every challenge becomes part of the training, and every moment unfolds as an opportunity to embody the direction chosen. A respect is a word often used casually, but when we truly examine it, it becomes one of the most fundamental principles of living. To respect something is to acknowledge its worth, its value, its importance, and to treat it in accordance with that recognition. We are quick to show respect to traditions, to teachers, to elders, or to authority. But how often do we pause to ask ourselves, do I show the same respect to my own body? Do I show the same reverence to my own energy? For many, the answer is unsettling. We push the body beyond its limits, we ignore its signals, and we drain our energy in directions that yield little fulfillment. This lack of respect does not just diminish our health, it fractures our relationship with ourselves, leaving us disconnected and weakened in both body and spirit. The body is not merely flesh, bones, and muscles. It is the vessel through which we experience existence. Without it, none of our thoughts, aspirations, or intentions could find expression. The body is the stage upon which life unfolds, yet many live as if it were disposable, treating it like a machine designed only to serve the desires of the mind. When respect is absent, neglect takes its place. We eat without awareness, we move without grace, we sleep without quality, and eventually we find ourselves surprised when the body resists, when it slows down, when it calls for attention through fatigue or illness. Respect begins by listening. It means recognizing the whispers of the body before they become cries, observing the signals of imbalance before they become breakdowns. Energy, in turn, is the invisible current that animates the body. It is what makes vitality possible. While the body is the physical expression, energy is the movement within it, the flow that sustains life. Every action, thought, and word carries an energetic cost. Too often, we spend energy recklessly, scattering it across trivialities, wasting it on arguments, distractions, and habits that weaken instead of strengthen. To respect energy is to conserve it, to channel it, and to use it with purpose. Just as water must be directed to nourish a field, energy must be directed to nourish the life we want to create. When energy is wasted, even a strong body will feel heavy, tired, and uninspired. There is also an intimate connection between the respect we show to the body and the respect we give to energy. They cannot be separated, for the body stores and reflects the quality of energy we cultivate. A tense body often reflects a restless mind. A fatigued body often mirrors scattered or misdirected energy. If we do not respect the body, the energy within it becomes stagnant. If we do not respect energy, the body becomes depleted. This cycle gradually distances us from vitality, from clarity, and from harmony. Respect requires discipline. It is not about indulgence or constant comfort. Many mistake respect for the body as simply giving it what it desires, such as food, rest, or pleasure. But true respect involves discernment. It is asking, is this action nourishing me or draining me? Does this strengthen my energy or scatter it? Sometimes respect means pushing the body to grow stronger, testing its limits in a way that builds resilience. At other times, respect means restraint, allowing the body the stillness it needs to repair and recover. The same principle applies to energy. Sometimes respect means expressing it fully with intensity and passion, and at other times it means conserving it, holding it within, letting it accumulate until the right moment for release. One of the great challenges in modern life is the constant pull on both body and energy. The pace of the world demands movement, consumption, and reaction. Screens, noise, responsibilities, and distractions tug at us from every direction. To live in such an environment without respect for body and energy is to slowly erode our foundation. It is to allow ourselves to be shaped by forces outside us rather than guided by awareness within us. Respect, then, becomes an act of rebellion against this constant drain. It is choosing to treat our own being as sacred, to step back and decide how we will use the limited resources of our strength and vitality. Respect for the body can be expressed in the smallest daily acts: breathing with awareness, standing with proper posture, eating with mindfulness, resting deeply, moving intentionally. These practices are not grand or dramatic, but they accumulate. Over time, they create a body that does not merely function but thrives. Respect for energy is cultivated in the same way, by paying attention to where it flows, by refusing to waste it on negativity, by withdrawing it from cycles of complaint or conflict, and by channeling it into creation, growth, and presence. When we begin to live with this respect, the body becomes not a burden but an ally. Energy becomes not something fleeting, easily lost, but a powerful current that sustains us. Our actions grow more deliberate, our words more impactful, and our presence more grounded. People often notice a glow, a vitality, a calm strength, but this is nothing mysterious. It is simply the result of respect, of treating the body and energy as precious resources instead of endless supplies. The journey of respect begins with awareness, but it deepens with practice. Over time, it changes the relationship we have not only with ourselves, but with the world around us. When the body is respected, it moves with grace. When energy is respected, it radiates with purpose. And together, they allow us to live not in constant struggle or exhaustion, but in harmony, in clarity, and in strength. In life, growth is never random. It is always connected to the soil in which you place yourself. Just as a seed, no matter how full of potential, will not flourish if planted in barren ground, a human being cannot fully thrive in an environment that starves their spirit, weakens their energy, or suffocates their inner calling. Choosing the right environment is not a matter of luxury or preference. It is a matter of survival for the soul and essential for transformation. When you think about the environment, do not limit it only to physical surroundings or geography. Environment means the total atmosphere in which you live and move. It is the people you interact with, the conversations that surround you, the habits that dominate your space, the energies that flow into your awareness each day. The right environment is not merely a place, it is a living influence that either draws you closer to your true path or pulls you farther away. One of the greatest mistakes is believing that inner strength alone is enough to withstand any environment. While strength is important, you must understand that constant exposure to negativity, distraction, or shallow pursuits drains even the most disciplined mind. A flame may burn brightly, but if placed in the wind long enough, it will flicker and eventually die. To preserve and expand your inner flame, you must choose an environment that shields and nourishes it. Environments are like mirrors. They reflect back to you the qualities that you absorb unconsciously. If you place yourself among people who constantly complain, criticize, and remain stuck in their own limitations, slowly you will find that your thoughts mirror theirs, your energy vibrates with theirs, and your spirit bends toward resignation. If you place yourself among those who are striving, disciplined, and respectful of growth, you begin to rise, not because they force you, but because their way of being creates a current that carries you upward. The body understands environment more than the mind admits. Notice how your breathing changes in a quiet forest compared to a noisy street. Notice how your shoulders relax when surrounded by peace compared to how they tighten in chaos. The body is always whispering to you whether an environment is feeding or draining you. When the body resists, when your energy feels heavy, when silence becomes impossible, it is a signal that you are not in the right place to grow. Choosing the right environment requires courage. It often means stepping away from familiar circles, from old patterns, and from places that once felt comfortable. It may even mean walking alone for a time, because solitude in a healthy space is better than companionship in a toxic one. To walk away is not rejection. It is recognition that your potential cannot unfold in soil that does not support it. A river does not apologize when it changes direction. It simply follows the path that allows it to flow. The right environment does not mean one without challenge. Growth requires friction, effort, and the stretching of limits. But there is a difference between an environment that challenges you to rise and one that continuously pulls you down. The right environment may confront you, but it does so in a way that strengthens. It disciplines you, sharpens you, and reminds you of your capacity. The wrong environment drains you with resistance that adds nothing, takes everything, and leaves you weaker than before. You must also understand that the environment you choose is not only external. It is also the inner environment you cultivate. The thoughts you entertain, the emotions you nurture, the mental space you allow. This is the invisible environment in which your spirit lives every moment. A person may be in a serene place outwardly, yet be restless inside because the internal environment is poisoned with anger, fear, or doubt. To choose the right environment is both to step into spaces that elevate you and to create a mind that supports your higher state. Examine the places where you spend most of your time. Look at the people whose voices you hear daily. Consider the rhythm of your routine. Ask yourself honestly, do these strengthen me or do they weaken me? Do they remind me of my purpose or do they make me forget? Do they raise my vibration or do they lower it? The answers are clear if you are willing to listen. Transformation begins when awareness meets decision. You cannot always control every circumstance, but you can choose where to direct your energy and which environment to prioritize. Small choices accumulate. Changing a single room in which you spend your mornings, selecting different voices to listen to, or rearranging your surroundings to bring more silence and clarity. All of these reshape your environment into a place where growth is possible. Choosing the right environment is not a one-time act, but a continuous practice. As you evolve, your needs shift. An environment that once supported you may later restrict you. Like a plant, you may outgrow your pot and require new soil. To cling to what no longer nourishes is to slow your own unfolding. To recognize when it is time to move on is wisdom. The right environment is a companion to your inner work. It reminds you of who you are, it echoes the values you choose to embody, and it sustains the discipline required for transformation. When the environment is chosen with intention, growth becomes natural, like a seed breaking through the soil, reaching effortlessly toward the sun. The practice of self-reflection is not an occasional act, but a way of life, a constant return to the inner chamber where the noise of the world cannot penetrate. To cultivate the habit of self-reflection is to make time and space for the dialogue that exists between the mind and the heart. In the same way a gardener tends the soil daily, pulling weeds and nurturing the ground so that it can bring forth fruit, self-reflection clears away the confusion and prepares the inner landscape for clarity. It is not something reserved for special days, retreats, or moments of crisis. It is the ongoing discipline of observing oneself, questioning the direction of one's actions, and realigning with what is essential. Many people move through life without pausing to examine what they carry within them. They react, they pursue, they struggle, and yet they rarely stop to ask, why am I moving in this way? What is driving me? The habit of self-reflection interrupts the cycle of unconscious motion. It is like pressing pause on the endless stream of doing so that one can finally return to being. Without this pause, we risk becoming entangled in patterns that drain our energy, caught in behaviors that lead us away from growth. But when reflection becomes a habit, awareness sharpens, and the actions that once seemed automatic are revealed in their true form. Self-reflection is not simply thinking about oneself. It is not the indulgence of replaying past events endlessly in the mind. Rather, it is the art of looking deeper, beyond the surface of thoughts and emotions, into the motives that produce them. It is asking, what is the root of this desire? Why do I repeat this habit? What am I truly seeking when I take this step? Such questions dissolve illusions and bring forth the truth that often hides beneath layers of conditioning. To develop this practice requires honesty, patience, and the courage to witness oneself without judgment. When reflection is absent, life feels heavier. Situations repeat themselves. Conflicts seem to follow us wherever we go. The same challenges reappear because the lesson hidden within them remains unseen. Self-reflection brings light to these recurring patterns. It shows us where we are blind, where we are stubborn, and where we are resisting change. By looking closely, we begin to notice the subtle ways our own choices create the outcomes we experience. Instead of blaming circumstances or others, reflection reveals the invisible thread between our inner state and the outer world. The habit of self-reflection also strengthens responsibility. It teaches us that transformation is not something handed to us from outside, but something shaped from within. When we make time each day to observe, even if only for a few minutes, we step into the role of both student and teacher of our own life. We see our progress not as luck or chance, but as the natural result of conscious choices. We recognize mistakes not as failures, but as guides pointing toward a more aligned direction. This responsibility is not heavy, it is liberating. It gives us the power to change, because what we see clearly we can transform. There is also a quiet strength in making reflection habitual. In the same way the body becomes flexible through consistent stretching, the mind becomes clear and resilient through daily self-examination. At first, it may feel uncomfortable to sit with one's own thoughts, to acknowledge tendencies we would rather ignore. But over time, what once felt confronting becomes a source of peace. The mirror no longer frightens us because we see that what is reflected can be shaped, molded, and elevated. Self-reflection is not about perfection, but about progress, about aligning little by little with the deeper truth of who we are. One of the most powerful aspects of this habit is the space it creates between stimulus and response. Most people react immediately to circumstances, allowing emotions to control their words and actions. Reflection, however, builds the inner distance that allows choice. It gives us the pause to ask, is this response aligned with my values? Will this action create harmony or conflict? This space is where wisdom resides. The more we cultivate reflection, the more naturally we act from clarity rather than impulse, from strength rather than insecurity. To practice self-reflection does not require elaborate rituals. It can be as simple as sitting quietly at the end of the day, reviewing the events and asking, where did I act with awareness? And where did I drift into habit? It can be writing down thoughts to see them clearly rather than letting them swirl unchecked in the mind. It can be the discipline of asking, why? 3 times whenever a strong desire or aversion arises, peeling back the layers until the core motive is revealed. These small practices, repeated daily, reshape the way we live. The habit of self-reflection ultimately deepens connection, not only with ourselves but with others. When we see our own struggles with greater clarity, we become more compassionate toward the struggles of those around us. We stop projecting our shadows onto others because we have learned to recognize them within. We communicate with more honesty because we are no longer afraid of facing the truth. Relationships shift because reflection has softened the hard edges of pride and strengthened the roots of humility. The mind that reflects becomes like still water, able to mirror reality without distortion. In that stillness, insights arise naturally. We begin to see not only the consequences of our actions, but also the subtle opportunities for growth hidden within each experience. What once felt chaotic starts to reveal a hidden order. The habit of self-reflection is what makes the invisible visible, what transforms confusion into clarity, and what allows us to walk through life with awareness instead of blindness.